Hey, go over for it. I'm trying to for a ponytail. Okay, hold on. Record, start, and start. There we are. We are. Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing Live Show number 252. As promised, we brought the brains of the group today, Melissa Cavanaugh with Field Travel, and we hear her sidekick, Stuart Butler.
I'm your sidekick, Melissa. How about that?
That's pretty awesome. I've never had a sidekick before.
And of course, the other brains of the operation, Miss Stephanie Smith with Cogwheel Marketing. Hi, Steph.
Hi.
We are probably, okay, so some feedback from the last time we had the privilege of having you on, Melissa. I had a few emails that said, look, you let Melissa give two numbers, and it took 2 hours. Can you let her have some more numbers? So we are going to let you just do your thing. Just do your thing.
Right.
I'm going to sit here. I think we're going to.
We may have to do that PSA again if Ed or Tim jump on. We may have to re-announce.
Right, Ed said he's not making it today. We're saying it from Flip2.
Okay.
And Tim Peter from Tim Peter and Associates said that he wasn't going to be able to make it. Mr. Ben Henley, how are you, sir?
Hello, everybody. What PSA have I missed? Because and if you have to put a warning on Ed,
keep stum. Yeah, keep stum is what he's saying. Don't say anything.
So we
Let
promised
Melissa
we're going to
talk.
let Melissa do her numbers today because I got some feedback from the last time we had the privilege of Melissa where we just didn't let her talk enough, that they were wanting more numbers. Now, I appreciated the link, and they went and looked at the link and all that other stuff, but we started jabberjawing all around her, and it didn't work. So, Melissa,
And
hi, welcome.
Melissa's used to that for sure. She gets to listen to me with her on the podcast all the time.
That's true. She has been, yeah, you're right. Notice how she's just smiling but not nodding.
very telling.
More gritting her teeth, I think, is what she's saying.
Yeah. She's
Taking
like
it
this.
this year.
So, Melissa, you have new results from all that you're doing. Please, maybe a little bit of recap of the history of it and then go into some of the new updates and so forth.
Yes, so we have new results from our own consumer sentiment study that we have been doing every 2 weeks since early April. So this is the 5th edition of this survey. And it's been a bit of a wild ride watching this progress every 2 weeks. This round, we did ask a bunch of new questions just because, honestly, a lot of the data hadn't been changing, and I really wanted to get a sense of forward thinking and what guests were expecting when they do travel and what they're expecting basically when they get on site. Can you not hear me?
Just a little bit of feedback.
Yeah, I can hear you echoing all it. It's probably Lauren's fault.
Probably.
If I speak closer to the mic, is that better or worse?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's better.
I'm going to lean in. All right. So for this round of our survey, and again, caveat, this is North American leisure travelers only. This round, we had over 5,000 responses with over 42 completed surveys. So that's where we are in terms of those stats, just so you get a sense of the scope of the survey. So I want to start off with some of the, I'm going to say, shocking results that I was surprised to see looking at some new questions that we asked. One was to rank the order in which people would like to check in for their next vacation, knowing that safety has been at the top of our survey in terms of what people are concerned about, obviously, since we started the survey. And so they were given the option of the front desk, a mobile app, the hotel website, a phone call, or a touchscreen kiosk in the lobby. And I was really surprised to see that in spite of all the safety things, people still want
do you want to play a game? Do you want to ask people if they can guess what was what?
I just gave it away.
Yeah, you're a couple of sentences too late there, Stu.
All right, that's fine. Karen, we can ask. You can guess what's bottom.
Oh, yeah, because I was surprised at that, too.
I was too.
What are they? I'll give us the options again.
All right, so at the front desk, touchscreen kiosk in the lobby, phone call, hotel website, or mobile app.
I'm going to have to say phone call is at the very bottom.
I'm going kiosk.
Oh.
We have a winner, Miss Stephanie.
I'm going to go kiosk too.
Good job, Chris.
And that's just because that's what I would have voted for as my bottom. So
Kiosk. I won't get into that because it's Melissa.
What?
I got the feeling there was going to be something British
No.
and English.
No, there's not. We talked too much last time, Melissa. Was
Yeah, we were told not to interrupt Melissa, which we're doing now by talking about not interrupting.
We got chided by our audience earlier.
Okay. So at the front desk was pretty much really by far the number one option to check in.
One of the things was interesting though, because it was a ranking thing. We have a distribution, and it comes up with a weighted number to rank that. If you look at the extremes on front desk, I think it was the second most people that had it at the bottom, as well as the most people had it at the top. So it was very polarizing. There were a segment of people that said absolutely not the front desk, but most people said, yeah, front desk.
Were you able to segment that by age of respondent?
Sure, we did. As a matter of fact, millennials were certainly more inclined to check in via an app versus the front desk. And believe it or not, we actually looked at this by gender as well. And males ranked checking in on the website higher than using a mobile app. Still, checking at front desk was number one, but the website was higher than using a mobile app. How about that?
Because men are technically challenged. That's why.
Stubborn.
So last week I was traveling. We stayed at a couple hotels, and I feel like, and then we actually ended up having dinner in the lobby, because I like to watch all the people. And everybody that was at the front desk was like, "What's the deal on breakfast? And what's the deal on the pool?" Like those things. I mean, that was like over and over and over again. I'm not saying a kiosk or a mobile app can't communicate that, but just in terms of being able to get the answers to what you need.
Right.
I
Just
wonder if
a
that
really, really big sign behind the front desk. That's all you need. Big letters.
Don't ask me for the 46th time. It's right here.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting the kiosk would rank so high because you still have to touch that. And everybody before you has just touched that. And you still have to stand in line for that. That doesn't solve any of the problems we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, kiosk was bottom, Dean.
Always
It was
bottom,
at the
I
bottom.
misunderstood.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was my
Agreed.
favorite question for this round. We sort of went down the rabbit hole of technology just to see, why not? So we also asked just flat out, would you be willing to use a mobile app to check in? And overwhelmingly, 81% said yes. Millennials voted higher. They were at 89%. And males, only 71% said yes.
But 71 is still a pretty good score. It's not quite an only, but I think compared to the females, I totally get you.
Yeah.
But we've been dragged kicking and screaming in the 21st century.
But we don't like change. We don't like change.
Anyway, I have no further comment, Melissa, and I invite you to continue.
I will
No
say that
comment.
was a very self-serving question that we asked there. Given that we offer a mobile app solution with mobile check-in.
Really? I've not heard about this app.
The next self-serving
I don't
question.
know if you guys are aware of that, but there may or may not be 80% of people want a mobile app to check in a lot of our propaganda right now. So,
Do you want to repeat that for the listeners, Stuart? 80-something% might have you.
yeah, 81% of people want a mobile app or are willing to use a mobile app to check in right now.
And let me get that. They can find out more at fueltravel.com.
This is right, yeah.
Okay, Kat
all right,
had
so
it in the
continue.
media gallery today on LinkedIn, and she said on a webinar yesterday it was mentioned that saying our pool is closed is less customer service friendly versus we would love to open our pool as soon as it's safe to do so. Just some comments from the gallery.
I mean, always, right? How you deliver information, especially information that is not going to be taken well, how you deliver that is always important, for sure.
Yeah. So saying the pool's closed because we don't want to catch cooties from you is not a good way to do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry, Matt, I'm gonna have to ask for some advice from the Peanut Gallery after Melissa finishes her stuff. I'm curious to how you guys would handle that based on what you just said. But
There were several questions that had write-in options that actually had some pretty interesting feedback. So I'm going to get to those in a minute. So hold that thought. All right. So on to the next self-serving question was asking about if you'd be willing to use a mobile app to unlock your room. This was a lot closer. I'm a little surprised. "Quote unquote," only 60%, still a majority, but 60% said that they would be willing to use an app to unlock the room. So 80% saying, yeah, I'll check in, but only 60% saying, yeah, I'll use it to unlock my room.
I'm surprised at that because I thought most people would be used to like the key card now would tap and go, and it's not a million miles away.
It's not, no, but please, Melissa, just give me 60 seconds to tell a quick story. I wanted to use the I think it was the Hilton mobile key on my phone one very dark and stormy night in England with a very tired wife and 2 young, screaming, angry children in tow. And there's a time you don't want the mobile app to fail and for it not to recognise that, and that was it. And I had 2 children, 2 bags, and an angry wife who just wanted some wine. And I ended up having to call front desk to come 3 floors up, and this guy came in and just tapped a key card. And I really, really put a sour taste in it. And I'm sure it's not the same for fueltravel.com's product. But what I'm saying is Hilton got it wrong, and that really left a sour taste in my mouth. They really have.
But the silver lining, though, Ben, was the fact that you had your phone in your hand to call the front desk when it failed on your app. So,
true, I guess.
I mean, it's better than trying to call the app on like a card that you've been given. It's not going to work, is it? Let's be honest.
It's not. So I'm a big fan of the mobile check-in and mobile keys and stuff because I'm an absolute techno addict. But the downside of it failing really does outweigh the upside of it working, I think. Anyway, sorry, please continue.
Yeah. And I think in our experience that errors that occur are typically either training or setup. If you're set up properly, the server's communicating effectively, we get like a 99.9% success rate on the unlocking with our app. So
I'm going to pull my old card out since I'm the oldest one, probably. The same transition issue happened when we went from hard keys to cards.
Yeah,
there was this lack of feeling of secure that anybody could walk up with some magic way of sliding a card and creating some sort of way of unlocking the door compared to actually physically having the key at the end of a tether. So it's just a transition of comfort.
Agreed. Yeah.
But to Ben's point, the key cards that are right now, those are still very problematic as well. So I feel like you have just as much chance of an app not working as a key card because those fail pretty often still.
Oh yeah, it happens with the cards too. Usually at the worst time possible. The tired, fatigued, carrying too many luggages. Yeah, that thing. Yeah. Oh, good.
I don't even travel that much. And the amount of times I've had to go back to the front desk to have my card reset is a little bit silly.
Yeah.
For that reason.
I guess it feels more impactful when it's a new technology that you come to terms with. Because my first thought is, sheesh, here's something that was rushed through before being tested properly. Bloody Hilton. But I'll give him another chance.
All right, Melissa.
All right, moving on. So we also asked, this is a new question, to pick the top 3 reasons that would prevent you from staying at a hotel now. I will read you all the choices that they had. Fear of other guests' interactions, fear of the common areas, budget concerns, fear of circulated air, fear of the hotel room, fear of rush of elevators, not enough vacation time, fear of the hotel staff interaction, and not enough job security. And that was the rank in which people responded. So we had 50% chose fear of guest interactions, and 43% said fear of common areas. We were at 40% actually stating that budget is holding them back. So this was one of those questions where there was a write-in option, and many people who decided to write in said they had no fear. There was nothing holding them back. And then there was a group of people that also mentioned specifically concerns about either the area not being open or amenities at the property not being open. So I do think that goes back to the whole, checking in and what's going to be open and what's not going to be open. But that is definitely, of people who wrote in, there was a high percentage of people who said that. Also, a little age insight, millennials ranked budget concerns as their top reason, whereas the group as a whole was at number 3. So millennials more concerned about budget. No comments from the Peanut Gallery on that one.
Oh, I thought it was interesting. The fear of guest interaction being one of the top things they list, and just thinking about how that differs with different types of hotels, because you've got a lot of brands that is their focus. That's actually what they're trying to do, is have that common area for guest interaction. We'll say like a Citizen M hotels as an example, right? Where being a part of that environment, being a part of the people that are there is really what their selling point is. And how do they adapt to that? I don't know the answer to that. We have a lot of challenges to figure that out, I think.
I think
Melissa, I don't know if you've been introduced to Dean, but that's Dean Schmidt with Derby Soft, by the way. Melissa, Dean, and Melissa.
No. I heard somebody was about to say.
I was going to say something, but again, I'm
Not allowed.
Nope. I'm gonna be quiet.
Wow, you've been trained really well to listen.
If you want, I'll bring my wife in and you can.
Yeah.
She talked more sense.
She's done a good job. Give her the kudos.
It's taken us 17 years, but 2 years, 1 month.
I think adding the amenities question is key because I know there are a lot of states who have mandated pools being closed.
Right.
And while I think hotels are super aware of that, I don't think that that's always known by the guests. So I know I've had quite a few hotels that are upset or have upset guests that they get there and realize that the pool is closed. And I work in the branded ecosphere, and you can't change the alert within Marriott or Hilton about what your amenities are. So you just need to go in there and change like the first sentence of your content to say our pool is closed. Well, whatever verbiage you want to use based on what you said earlier. But I think that certainly has something to do with where and when people go.
Yep.
And you would think that would certainly be well communicated in a confirmation email and a pre-arrival email. You would think.
Well,
hope.
Yes, you would think. But even those tickets on the brand side are taking a really long time to get updated.
Yeah, brands aren't the best at customizing things, are they? That's one of the challenges.
And Kat pointed out, and she's on the LinkedIn. We have pretty dialogue going on LinkedIn right now, but she says millennials previously accounted for 75% of the job force, so it makes sense that most are concerned with budgets.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Up next is a question that we've asked on every round of this survey, and that is, during the outbreak, I would like to hear from hotels on the following topics and check all that apply. We've got number one, again, is they want to know what the property is doing to protect guests, and that is over packages and specials for future stay. Again, so this is the third or fourth round now where safety is taking over deals in terms of what people want to hear from, and that percentage has grown at every single round of this survey. We're now at 64% interested in hearing about that safety.
Mm-hmm.
This was another write-in option for people. And again, I feel like this is a snapshot of America right now. So some people said, quote, "I'm tired of hearing about COVID." We had other people saying they wanted to know the estimated occupancy of the hotel when they arrive. And then to more of an extreme, if masks are going to be required or highly recommended. So literally every range of sentiment within this question.
Yeah, I don't know if it was this question or not, but one of the write-ins for one of the questions, there were a couple of people who said coronavirus is a hoax.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say, was that from a guy called D. Trump?
All right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, Lauren. I thought Lauren was going to go.
No, sorry. I was just making sure I was not missing any comments in the other dialogues to it. I think everyone's pointing out the same thing, that people are tired of hearing about it and so forth and so on. And I was going to make one comment that from earlier shows, I do all my clients now. We do the little video of just it's a homegrown video each of the hotels does as to show what they're doing to show their preventive measures and so forth. And they have been very successful and good traffic generators, and people refer to them and so forth because they literally, the hotel says, "Hey, go to this link," or "We can send you this link" when they get called up, and you can see a little bit of what we do to make sure you're safe. And it's been pretty helpful. So,
yeah. And I think we talked about it on the show before that every individual person, every potential guest is at a different point in their psychological recovery from this, right? And depending on their unique experience, their fear tolerance, their risk aversion, they're going to be at a different point and care about different things. So you're going to have a spectrum of people that are tired and fatigued of hearing about it, and people that are now finally just getting to that point where they're actually considering travel. And that's why we see that number go up. The what the property's doing to take care of us is you're seeing more. That we've always talked about the shifting bell curve of where people are, and as that we get closer to the peak, we're going to see that number increase because people 8 weeks ago were like, well, price is always the most important when I travel, and I'm not thinking about really traveling right now, so I don't care about much else. But as they get closer to the reality of actually maybe traveling, they start really paying attention to the things that matter to them as an individual. So it's not about blasting the same thing out all the time. It's about understanding where each guest is and catering to their needs, letting it be discoverable for them.
I wonder as time goes by as well, I wonder how many of those people that are responding have actually had COVID-19 now. Because I would be very sick of hearing about COVID-19 if I'd already had it. And the whole restrictions placed upon my life, even if, I've come through it, as the vast majority of people who do get the disease do, according to, the data I've been reading, survive it, and there's going to come a tipping point if you listen to a lot of the medical experts that are saying it is going to go through the population. It isn't going to disappear. Well, certainly in the UK, they've been talking about it. The idea was to place restrictions on us so we didn't overwhelm the medical services. And I think that's the same for the US. So I'm wondering if there is going to come a point where it's either going to die away or there's going to come a point where it's gone through the majority of the country and it's got that herd mentality as it's been referred to. I wonder then how things are going to change and at what point that would be.
I got a couple of things here from LinkedIn. So Danielle Collins asked, also, when did guests last stay in the room? So I replied back to her, is that in reference to how well they cleaned the room, or you're actually worried about the time delay between when the guest was last in the room? Kat brought up a great Karl Marx comment, says, hey, since we have some conspiracy theorists on the panel, has the thought crossed to anyone else's mind that the current news has drastically shifted to non-COVID topics to make it less ever-present for folks, / Karl Marx? And Adele, we all know Adele. She's on LinkedIn with us. She said, I wonder when they ask if the hotel will be requiring guests to wear masks, are they more comfortable if hotels say yes or no?
It depends if they're red or blue in America. It's become such this political divisive topic, and it makes no sense. But I think it's commonsensical, but depending on your situation, your geographic location, to adopt the psychology of your area, right? So if you're in California, the majority of people around you are going to be wearing masks. They're going to be very aware of this. Here in South Carolina, it's completely the opposite. Things are literally, my 14-year-old son just started work this week for the first time at a hotel as a pool attendant. And he said, you wouldn't know there was a coronavirus pandemic going on. Everyone was out on the pool deck, drinking from the bar, hanging out like nothing was going on. There's not a single, other than staff, there wasn't a single face mask inside. And these hotels are 70, 80, 90% occupied right now. It's crazy. So I think geographically it changes, based on who the population is that you're drawing from. It's a big difference. People in California are like, you guys are crazy, which we probably are, but it's the reality we're living in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's another question to ask next time about face masks.
Yeah. Are you a Democrat or Republican? That'll answer that question.
I just want to ask what news source they use. That's it.
Kat wants to know, Stuart, if you think that it's Jedi themed, dark side versus the light side.
Yeah, probably so. I've ordered a handful of Star Wars masks, so that's what I'm going to be wearing once they come in. So
Nice.
yeah, it's going to be an accessory. It's not just a medical device. It's going to be, hey, I'm cool because I got Star Wars
Fashion
masks.
statement.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it is. Yeah.
Hey, Stuart, can you keep an eye on the chat line if Adele joins? I'm trying to take her jump over from LinkedIn because I want to keep an eye on LinkedIn's dialogue. We have pretty active dialogue, and I can't watch both the chat and it at the same time.
Yeah. Maybe Stephanie can do that because I'm blind and I won't see it. So.
That's
Just
true.
saying.
That's true. I can jump back. Right.
No, Vic is talking about what's going on at his hotel, and he's saying most of the guests are wearing those. And I think some of that states. I don't know where. Vic, what
Where's
hotel?
your hotel?
Yeah, I was gonna say, where's your hotel? Because we have like Pennsylvania, there it's a state requirement. So that I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing that the folks outside of the U.S. don't really get, because in England it's pretty much, although there's a sort of a north-south divide, because the south's way better than the north, right, Ben? In terms,
that's fine.
I'm sorry, Melissa. I hold my tongue and I can hold it no longer.
but there's not really these pockets of very different outlooks like there is in the U.S. Like state by state, it's very, very different.
I really want to say something very inappropriate about what you've just said, and a particular subset of people within the UK that I met at the weekend that I would say a very, very different outlook, but I won't because I will get myself in trouble. But,
politically correct.
Yes, from certain large cities in the northwest, shall we say. I will go no further, but it was a very interesting weekend I had.
There's obviously talk over in the UK about making face coverings mandatory on public transport. Face coverings, not face masks, and I don't really know what the difference is. I think the idea is that we don't create a shortage of masks for the medical professionals, but we just sort of cover your face, just.
Well, I think they're on about the snoot things, though, aren't they? Because they were talking about this with football players. That's the one with your foot. In the UK, where they put they're on about with training going back, and instead of them wearing face masks, they're allowing them to wear like a snoot or a hood or whatever it would be. So I'm wondering if that's what the UK government is possibly referring to instead of PPE.
I don't know, but if you breach the law, it's $110 fine. So I'd quite like some guidance on it before I tape a diaper to my face, unused, I might add, and then get slapped with like a £100 fine. So,
so Danielle Collins, she got back to clarify what I asked her, and she says how well it was cleaned / time between guests in the room to allow for air circulation, etc. I heard there was a 3-day rule between guests at some properties, helpful for guest peace of mind, but tough on occupancy once things return.
Yeah, it's a psychology thing, right? It's telling guests that there's a gap between someone being there and someone not. I don't know that medically or scientifically speaking, there's a lot of evidence that makes a difference. So
Adele's in. Steph, can you hit her video key, her video icon beside Adele Guzman?
Yep.
And I'll turn her into a presenter for us.
We forgot the first rule that we were meant to let Melissa talk. Do we want to
go
go back?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Melissa, good to have you on the show. What's going on
today? I think I've gotten through more on this round than combined the last.
Right?
So.
Yeah.
Adele!
Adele. Hey, Adele.
How are you? Nice to see you all.
Thanks for joining. Okay.
Back to Melissa.
It's
All
a
right.
COVID benefit. I'm normally working in the office, but now I have time for watching you. So it's one of the unexpected pleasures.
Thank you, Adele. Good to have you. Hi, Melissa. What's next on the weird numbers?
So since we're talking about housekeeping, let's talk about housekeeping. We did ask about that and what level of housekeeping guests would prefer. And I didn't see an overwhelming percentage of anything. This was very diverse. So the number one answer was at 29%, only when I requested. But 22% for each of daily full service and daily switching out of towels. Followed by every other day switching out of towels, and beneath that was every other day full service, and then about 5% said none at all. So I was surprised that, quote unquote, only 29% are at only when I requested.
I had an owner post about the cleanliness thing, because there's a lot of owners fussing about how much they're going to have to spend on like different cleanliness things and like that. But they were like, if you cut back on your housekeeping schedule, then there's a greater offset in labor than it is in what you're spending in more cleaning products. So try to come with a zero-sum solution for that from an operations standpoint. And my husband's hotel started doing cleaning every third day. It's a 1,200 room property. They did it for over a year, and I don't think they had one single complaint. It didn't even seem to bother people at all. This was way before COVID.
Yeah, I think that's right. I wish we had asked this question prior to COVID. I would love to have seen it. My gut tells me it would have been equally as diverse. And I think that's the point, right? Each individual has preference. Like when I travel, I don't want anyone in my room because I'm usually only there for 2 or 3 nights on business. There's no reason to come in and clean, and I'd just rather not deal with the risk of that. So I think it's going to be up to the individual based on the type of trip. But there's the point, right? That's the insight is, can you use this knowledge to offer flexibility to guests, to ask them at check-in, would you like daily housekeeping? Would you not? And let that be a flexible choice. That's going to improve their experience and probably save you money, to Stephanie's point, if a lot of people don't want daily full housekeeping.
You know,
Especially right now.
I am one of those people also. I get my room cleaned once a week. I figure I change my sheets once a week at home. Why do I need more when I'm elsewhere? But one thing that hotels are concerned about now are the safety checks after the MGM. Was it at MGM? I'm trying to remember where it was, in Vegas, with the active shooter. Now we make sure that someone checks on that room at least every 2-3 days tops, to make sure that nothing disastrous could be in the work.
One question came up out of the chat on LinkedIn. Leyland Adams asked, do you think that thermal cameras with enhanced temperature readings are going to become adopted by hotels and businesses to add to an extra line of defense?
Not in the U.S.
I think it'll come down to cost. That's the cost versus the demand from consumers as well as the visitors to a hotel. If that is going to increase the confidence in somebody visiting a hotel, then it's worthwhile the expenditure. If it's not, there are other ways you can invest your money.
Say it's hyper affordable, by the front door, by the back door for employees. They walk in, it's non-invasive. It checks their eyes or their body temperature compared to some contrast that's in the camera spectrum. Then would you say non-invasively that it would be?
Well,
I just don't think it's necessary.
Into a false sense of security as well. If you've caught COVID and you've got some contact on your clothes or on your bag, or maybe your wife's, she's been reminding you where your shoes are just before you leave, and then it's on your shoes, and because you don't think you've got it, you're not washing, and you're having housekeeping coming every so often. So it's a double-edged sword, but I don't think having those kind of precautions in place should preclude, hammering home the wash distance message that seems to be doing so well at the moment.
Yeah, and I think, looking at the rebound of certain markets already, beach destinations, mountain destinations, state parks, these places are full now without these checks in place. I don't think it's necessary. And I think the last thing we need for hotels right now is more expense or a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Because the reality is this isn't going to last forever. Either we're going to start treating it like flu and stop obsessing about it, or we're going to get it under control with a vaccine or better treatment. So I don't think it's necessary. Hoteliers aren't big at spending money when they don't have to, especially when they don't have it.
So Melissa, do you know a guy named Pete DeMaio? I don't know.
Yeah.
He's trolling us on LinkedIn, as you know, and
he murders bees. Don't listen to him.
He says, interesting COVID fact related to F&B. One of my clients had to discontinue their free breakfast buffet and replace it with a to-go breakfast box. Guests were upset, but F&B revenue went through the roof for lunch service since guests didn't load up on breakfast and skip lunch.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm in New York. We have 4 hotels in New York. And of course, we're really concerned how we can make people feel comfortable returning to the city again. I'm sure that other urban areas have the same issue, but not to the extent of New York. And in our hotels, we have a 24-hour complimentary club lounge. So the breakfast in the morning, the wine and cheese in the evening, is such a part of who we are. And now we're talking about the same thing. So it's very disappointing to hear that people were upset and not flexible in understanding of the situation that it is. It's for their own protection.
It was probably Pete's fault. He probably didn't set expectations well enough.
Communication is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of if anybody listens to our podcast, they know that I love Kimpton. Sorry, shout out to them. But same situation where they're built around this community. They've got a wine and cheese happy hour every night. Come with your dogs, and I would love to know what's going on in properties like that where you really can't commune like that anymore. Maybe or maybe not.
I mean, I can't imagine dogs consume much wine or cheese, but it's a good point. How does it change what you offer? Impact.
You haven't met Melissa's dog.
For some of our full service hotels that have kept F&B open, the room service drop and go has been extremely popular, even if it's on a limited menu. So if that's something that you can still pull off, it's become very. I don't think we've gotten complaints about the limited menu. At least they can get something a little bit warm on a super. But the drop and go, even from a room service standpoint, has been super popular, well received.
Pete said that he didn't buy his honey. That's why that was the problem. And for those who don't know, Pete is also on the podcast. The podcast is phenomenal. I know you guys are on the show, but I keep ranting about it every way. But Field Travel Podcast is one of the most definitive, helpful hospitality podcasts that you can listen to. And the team, Melissa, Stuart, Pete, and other motley crew members of the Fueligans put together some very excellent content. And so if you don't get the chance to listen to it, the honey joke and all that stuff, you'll catch on as you listen to back episodes. But what is it when you have a bee, when you curate bees, Stuart, what's the name of the
You're
person?
an apiarist.
That's it. I never can say it right anyway because you'll be in terms. But yeah, Peter's that.
He was.
Oh yeah, that's true. He was. Yes, just as much as you used to be a brewer for beer, but now you're not.
Yeah. I'm on hiatus like he is.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, so
all right.
All right, Melissa.
All right, back to you, Melissa.
We're talking about food. Let's keep talking about food. So this is the second round. We asked about where people would prefer to eat when on property. Buy groceries and eat in your room, order room service, eat at a restaurant at the hotel outside, eat at a restaurant, the hotel inside, restaurant in the local area outside, local area inside, take out, and order delivery. So both buy groceries and eating in the room was extremely popular, but only by a few percentage points higher was eating at the restaurant on site outside. Same with eating at a restaurant in the local area outside. So if you've got a restaurant on site and you've got outdoor seating, that's great. And if you've got rooms on property that you can cook your own food, although I really, after 3 months of cooking my own damn food every day, I don't want to go on vacation and cook my food, but apparently I'm in the minority.
Does that get split by geographic or demographics? Or is it pretty much consistent all the way across the board?
We did see millennials that were more likely to eat indoors by several percentage points than the group as a whole. And we did see, compared to last time, we did see those likely to eat indoors actually did increase several percentage points for both on property and local restaurants. What else do we have here? Oh, to be fair, we did also add a new choice to this, which is I never do this anyway, because I wasn't sure if people who said definitely not were saying definitely not because of the virus or just because, hey, I don't do this. And room service was by far the most impacted by that because we had almost 18% of people that said, I don't do this anyway.
I'm going to bring up a comment of that, it'll be in the show notes today, but Robert has become very polarized into his opinions as to how the universe is going to unfold. And he provides us a list of curated content each week that we never really get to recently, but that's okay. It's always in the show notes, always good stuff. But
recently.
recently. Well, okay, past 5
Never
years,
have
but
gotten
who's
to.
counting?
Just the last 100 episodes.
Yeah.
So one of the things he's talking about is that the hotels that come through this, the creativeness that they come at with this, and I have to attest to that. I believe that's probably one of the best statements he has come up with recently. Is that the creativeness coming into this, whatever our new marketing is going to be, those people will succeed exceptionally well compared to those that are going back to old marketing types.
Sure.
And one of those things is when you pointed out about the nearby restaurants. We had gotten great success. And this is a hotel that has all suites, so it has kitchenettes, and people do like getting their groceries. We do a delivery grocery service for them as well, and everything else is. But what really has resonated strong with them is we've been featuring local restaurants that are just as hungry about getting business back. And so we feature them as a pickup and go in the lobby. And we've given them discounts towards it if they want to pre-order, and the food's literally having their name on it. It is in the lobby for them to come down and pick up or what have you. And it has been a great success for the restaurant and for the hotel because they now have lunch and dinner service. They never even had lunch and dinner service. You know,
Yeah.
they had just breakfast that they offered up, and they had to change that because same methodology. They had to say, what did you want? You know, like a little room card, fill it in. And then we would have it with your name on it downstairs, and you can come pick it up, or we can drop it off in your room, whatever. And now we did lunch and dinner. So they're actually offering more food service now than they did before, but they're featuring local restaurants. And it's not that other restaurants can't deliver; it's just we're featuring them, and it's kind of cool. It's like, wow, we never would have ever done that had this situation had come up. So that's what I'm thinking about creativeness.
I think that's awesome.
Me too.
All right. Last couple of questions. I can't believe we've gotten through basically all the questions today. We're still asking how likely people are to book a trip in X amount of days. And within the next 30 days has continued to grow over time. We are now at 54% that responded maybe or higher within 30 days. We're at 66% within 60 days, and then 79% within the next 90 days. So since our last survey, within the next 30 days increased from 50 to 54%. And we were at 37% when we first asked this question in the middle of April. So big change over time for sure, which is good.
So if you're not running advertising right now, you're going to miss the window. It's going to be a small window. People are booking. They're booking at a rate that is twice as fast as this time last year for a lot of markets. You have to have your marketing machine back on now. You're too late already, but you're going to be a lot later tomorrow. So don't wait.
And you know, I'm a fan of quick bookings, but I think they become even more important right now with the need to be able to control your own narrative. Because there will be a resurgence. I don't like saying that, but that's just reality. There will be. I don't know where, I don't know when, but there will be. And if that happens to your hotel where you suddenly find yourself having to close, do you want third-party OTAs calling your guests to rebook and cancel, or do you want to be able to handle that yourself?
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to control that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about the lead time as well. Here you got to consider it's the look to book, the funnel. The sales funnel aspect of it. So that 30 days that you talk about there, Melissa, it may well be that or it's most likely that people are looking now.
Yeah.
You know, depending on the location, the type, obviously, the destination, what it is, it's going to vary from a city stay to a beach stay, obviously.
Yeah, it's really not the time for a lot of urban areas. I just spent a nice call yesterday with our Expedia rep in Toronto. And, I said, hey, I heard there were $275 million that you're going to put forward to your partners on marketing, and I'd like my percent, please. And she said, you know what? We're not going to get to the urban areas yet. We're going to let the demand, show us who's ready to book now. And it isn't, it really isn't Toronto. The only, and it's the same in New York City. It's just, first responders and people who are involved in the COVID crisis. It is not leisure travelers. So they're not going to, if Expedia says we have to spend the money smart, we can't waste it on advertising now to areas that are not going to pick up. Beaches, camping, that kind of things, of course, lodges, that's a whole nother story. So it really depends on the location and the type of.
Agreed. And I don't want to get too political here, and I don't know what the difference is between the reality of the situation and what the media portray. But certainly over here in the UK, night after night, all we see is reports of disorder and rioting and protests going on across your country in the major cities. And I think if ever there was something that was gonna city leisure is going to be difficult. We know from the sentiment studies that you guys have put together, it's going to be one of the things that's just bringing up the rear. It's going to be the destinations, the wide open areas where you can breathe and you're alone. If they didn't need another reason to not start getting occupancy, not start getting people back into it, if anywhere didn't need it, it was the big cities. So that's going to be another thing I think that's going to push people away from booking, at least in the short term. I think you've sort of got a perfect storm here of local and national disorder, and you know, with the COVID frame around it, to be honest. So I think you're gonna have to hold your breath.
The other edge of that thing is that we now have an experiment that we didn't necessarily want or need, but we have an experiment that says what happens when thousands upon thousands and thousands of people are out shoulder to shoulder now compared to, a few weeks ago. The response might be different, because obviously things are much more controlled. Our statistics get, more and more under control every day. So what happens 2 weeks after these protests and riots, two separate things? What happens after that is going to be very telling, because it may actually, if nothing happens, it may actually put people more at ease. Who knows?
Yeah,
sorry, Ben.
I was just going to say, one of my ex-colleagues from Pegasus, who's working close with Nevada Lodging Group, he obviously, parts of Vegas are reopening up, and people are swarming back to these places. And it's going to be an amazing experiment on both revenue, occupancy, and health. How many people are going to go back? What are they going to spend? How long are they going to stay there for? And what's your infection rate going to look like? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Is it not going to make much of a difference having these people crammed into casinos, as long as we all wash our hands and sing happy birthday? So when these places open up, as long as people are looking for the data and looking what they can take from it, you're right, it is an experiment the whole industry can learn from. I've done it again.
It seems to be that, certainly from the images and the news broadcasts that I've been seeing, that even when people are rioting or protesting, as you say, they're both very, very different. In both sets of circumstances, you still have people who are using face coverings. The rioting probably more so because they don't want to get caught, but certainly in the protests as well, it's good to see that that's happening. So that it is a different world than what it was only a few weeks and months ago when COVID-19 was on the rise. And we're all wondering what do you remember the time when we were all reeling over the fact that ITB in Berlin was cancelled? Oh my goodness! That seems such a long time ago and a different world away now. The world we're now in is very much changed. So I think it's a really good point. It would be a very interesting experiment to see.
I have a question for Melissa. As this goes forward and more people get either back to work or start traveling, or as you said, from fatigue, they just aren't going to participate in the survey perhaps as much as they did before when they had more time on their hand or something. Do you keep a sample integrity count as to how many of each of categories of the, if it's demographic or geographic in comparison to other sample counts that also contributed to before? Because I guess in a way you can start skewing your own results if there's a diminished amount of people from the same set that isn't responding as much. And so now you're skewing the numbers as to what people are responding like, simply because there's less representation of certain demos.
I think just looking from an age and income level, those percentages have been pretty standard, although the numbers have been decreasing. I think the disbursement of those
distribution,
yeah, that's a better word.
Yeah, and we're still at 5,000 plus respondents, with 4,600 completes. So we definitely are a sample size larger than most sentiment studies. But I think it is going to continue. We're seeing the engagement levels have decreased dramatically. The people are not as passionate, and there's probably some fatigue going on because we've been hammering them every 2 weeks for 8 weeks now. But we do monitor that, Lauren. We're keeping an eye on the distribution of, like Melissa said, age and income primarily to make sure that we're not skewing something that way. And that's why we break it out too. We do look at the data broken out by each of those segments as well. So.
Was there anything that, Melissa, since you're so close to it, did you see anything that you haven't shared with us yet as to just like an eyebrow raising, didn't expect that, or that seemed odd?
I shared all those at the beginning.
Okay.
What about Melissa, the word cloud? There were some new types of words showed up this time.
Yeah.
On that question.
So we ask what their current thoughts are about traveling now, and I have this nasty gnat in my house. And safety is, again, it's number one. It has been since the beginning, but we do have some new words around money and price that were not there before. And I've got mixed feelings. I'm not really sure how to interpret that. So to me, it's either positive because it means that people are thinking about traveling and talking about budget items, or it's more negative in sentiment because financial strain is really starting to weigh on people at this point. I don't know.
I think it depends on which demographic you're going to be talking about. We've discussed this on the show before. If it's the people who are actually seeing a pay rise than what they would normally be on because of unemployment and being furloughed, then we're getting closer and closer to that potentially ending or being extended or whatever. We've also had, Ben and I have been speaking to people in Florida as well who have been struggling to actually get unemployment, yet been out of work for weeks. They're still stuck in the system. It's horrendous. So there's different ends of the spectrum, and then there's also going to be, there's going to be a whole middle income level. I think that potentially that some that are in jobs, some that are out of jobs that have lost it, but still wanting to get back to some kind of normality in terms of getting life back on track post COVID-19. So there's going to be a whole mix in there, but as ever, money is going to be important.
Yeah, we saw the same category asking when will you travel? And we saw afford and money pop in there. So again, I think it's the same when I can afford to go kind of thing.
There seems to be less what's the words that were in it previously? Well, freedom. The one I'm looking at is freedom. But the previous one that you did, there seemed to be a lot more words connected with that, almost like a releasing of the shackles. They seem to have disappeared, but the underlying ones of the health, the safety, scared, they're still there, which we understand. But it's almost like the shackles have been released, everyone's gone a little bit mad, and now we're starting to see it just drop, and the reality of the world's coming back with money and price and caution coming into things. That's a lot shorter than I thought it would be. I thought that freedom aspect of it might have lasted a little bit longer.
Yeah, I guess reality has kind of set in for all of us. But yeah, so we did have, I think on the last one, there were probably 3 or 4 different versions of relax. It was like relax, relaxation, relaxing. And this time we just have one, and then there's just one freedom, and fun has completely dropped off.
Nobody wants fun anymore.
Nobody wants fun.
Boo.
Well, keeping with the theme on the clean side of things, Robert did bless us with the 2 tablets today on content and so forth. And his top topic was in regards to cleanliness. And I actually have a contention with it. Let me add, before, if anybody hasn't looked at the article yet, and I'll share the link now in just a sec. If I were to make the statement, Airbnb is cleaner to stay at than a hotel, would you agree or disagree?
Disagree.
Disagree.
The article purports that you would actually think that they'd say it's cleaner for you.
Who was the author of the article?
Well, that's what I'm going to put the link in here for, because
Airbnb.
talking about the fact that, and sorry for all the OTM string on it. I just grabbed it off of the link that Robert gave us to us. The article is purporting, actually saying that it's safer to go to Airbnb than to a hotel because, and this is their largest contention, the human interaction is lesser than at a hotel. And the other contention is that hotels have more discretion on their cleaning protocols. And I don't agree with that second statement as much as the article tries to purport. But it's trying to push that the fact that because you see fewer people, human interaction, and that the Airbnb has more capability of showing its cleanliness process, and I think that's inferred by the article, that it is potentially safer to stay at an Airbnb. And I contest the opposite. I say that the standardizations in hotels, the frequency in the hotels, the persistency in the hotels is a stronger argument. And that given the protocols that have been being put into place by not just brands, but hotels mimicking brands, that, you know, with screens and plexis and so forth, and reduction in interaction with humans, that isn't really a viable argument.
I think it depends on what people's thoughts are around where are you most likely to catch COVID. Is it from contact on something, or is it from being in human contact, you know, close proximity to other humans? And certainly the evidence that we've read suggests it's in close proximity of other human beings. So I can see why they're saying this, but I also contest it on that fact, because if you're in Airbnb, you've still got to go out and get your food. You've got to go out, you know, and you've still got to go out and interact in the public, in the same respect that you would possibly have to interact at certain points in the hospitality journey. But then there's ways of mitigating in hotels. You know, you use contactless apps. You can minimize the amount of contact you have with anybody by going to a hotel to virtually nil. Whereas I don't know, perhaps with Airbnb, maybe I'm being too biased. Maybe I'm being too biased and in favor of hotels here. And I'm trying to be impartial and fair, but I disagree with some of the sentiments that are in there.
I mean, I've had a 50-50 split on Airbnb engagement. I've had it where the host met us at the place and walked us through and showed us stuff. And then I've also been at Airbnbs where I had a key box. You know,
Lauren, why are you staying at Airbnbs? You meant to support the hotel industry.
Yeah. If only somebody made an app that was for keyless entry and stuff.
Speaking of which, I actually have to go because I've got to go do a demo of a keyless entry app from Fuel Travel. So I have to jump on. This has been a sincere pleasure.
Stuart, thank you.
Melissa, it was really nice to meet you.
We're not even going to give you the acknowledgement of who you are. We're just going to let you bleed out. And then,
I'm going to head out. Melissa will do that stuff.
Melissa will go over and cover why Fuel Travel is so cool and why she's in charge of it. I mean,
despite me.
Despite your best attempts.
Yeah. All right, guys. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Stu.
So I don't know if anybody. Go ahead, Steph.
No, I was just going to say, I looked up the author of that article, Elizabeth Bushwald, and she is based out of New York, but she is a personal finance reporter. So I don't know why she needs to stay in her lane. That's my recommendation.
Go to the court.
Maybe she's a heavy investor in Airbnb.
Well, I'm like, why is she writing that article? And that none of her other articles are, but she looks like she's jumping on the bandwagon. But anyways.
But I think the challenge, of course, is always that with Airbnb, you don't know exactly what you're going to get, right? So you're reading the reviews, trying to do your research, but taking that to the hospitality or to the hotel industry, and I'm curious to see how this all impacts our walk-in and drive-up business. Whereas before, I might have been, say I'm a trucker, and I'm comfortable driving down the road, and there are brands that I trust. That location looks pretty good or whatever, but I don't necessarily know a whole lot about it. Are we going to see a decrease in the people who are willing to do that? Because now I feel like I've got to do a little bit more research. I want to look at the reviews. Maybe I'm not comfortable just walking in the door anymore.
Yeah, I would never step foot in a hotel that I didn't check the reviews, but I miss reviews over here. One thing I have to say between an Airbnb and a hotel, with a hotel, you have thousands of reviews. And with an Airbnb, what are you going to get? 5 reviews. I mean, is that really a body of evidence of the quality of their housekeeping? I think that if you have a super high score from thousands of people, you can trust and you have faith that that company has some honor and that they work with integrity, because they couldn't have possibly gotten thousands of 5-star reviews without that. And you know, even a franchise brand name isn't as meaningful as thousands of reviews, because just because some company sets out these are our standards and the franchisees all have them, those are great guidelines, but it's what's in the hearts and souls of the housekeeper that's actually going through that room to know how diligent it's going to be.
Mhm.
So
Adele, I would agree with most what you said there. But the one thing I think, the difference between reviews for hotels and reviews for Airbnbs, and it's so obvious, but I'm still going to say it. With an Airbnb, I think there's more accuracy to the product that's been reviewed. With a hotel, you'll have potentially a different person who's checking you in. You're going to be in a different room in the hotel. Your room's going to be cleaned by a different person. You'll be served at the bar by a different member of the bar team. But with an Airbnb, you're more likely with an owner-occupied, an owner-rented property to be met by the same person. If the same person do your cleaning, you've got the same room. So they're going to be more accurately reviewing the same product, whereas with reviews of the hotels, you don't know where they may have experienced a different product to you for so many reasons. So you have to take them with a little bit of pinch of salt.
Okay, I'm going to take Adele's side on this one, just because. Because and Adele, I speak first off. Adele is brilliant when it comes to review impact and so forth. We can get to that in just a little bit. But the super hosts have gone to a monetization model of hiring crews just like a hotel does. The small Airbnbs, I would completely agree with you, Ben. The intimate, the uniques, those ones, absolutely. Same person, same host, same cleaning, whoever, most likely, because it's small, it's one person, or thereabouts the same person. But these super host places that are up in New York, in big cities like Chicago, Miami, and so forth, there's companies that literally their ecosystem is based on being the cleaning crews for these super hosts. And so they're running different people at different places all over the place. Now, they may be dealing with the same booking process, but by far probably not the person that actually owns the place. It's their process of a service profile in there. And the cleaning crews also have that. So there is some homogeneity to the comparison on it.
And if it's a big place serviced by the rotating different crews, completely agree.
And if it wasn't Adele, I would agree more with you. But Adele has actually been the best success story ever about creating the personalization experience and sharing it on reviews that I ever have known. So
we're aware of the collection.
We're definitely aware of the library collection. Indeed. I think I just wanted to mention one point that we kind of brought up, I think, in a couple of shows back, where hotels would have an advantage on Airbnb. Now, I think I've used Airbnb once, maybe twice in my life. So forgive me if I'm completely wrong on the Airbnb platform. So that's my disclaimer before I do it. But we were talking about a general manager or somebody within the hotel literally just getting their iPhone or a camera or something very, very rudimentary and walking through, videoing the cleaning process for that hotel. Now, that for me as a consumer is going to have much more impact to satisfy my thirst for knowledge, put me at ease about staying at that hotel, when Airbnb can't do that. Whether it's a super host or an individual host, I don't think the platform allows it to do it, and that's the bit I'm hazy on. But I'm pretty certain it doesn't do that. So there is a huge advantage here for the hospitality industry in that you can do this, and there's a website there that virtually every hotel on the planet now has got a website where you can engage with your clients, future bookers, and show them just what Airbnb can.
Yeah. The one thing about Airbnb in comparison to hotels, in the sense of the communication levels, and one thing that they have beaten us at badly is they have created communities of engagement. Airbnb has, and to your point, into the Airbnb world, it's one thing to see it on the platform. And you're right. There is a limitation as to showing them things like that on the actual Airbnb platform. That is a booking platform. It's an information based, here it is, and then here's your call to action button. But the Facebook communities associated with Airbnb are very robust. They're equal to, if not in some ways, I think superior to even the TripAdvisor profiles, because it is a more direct, you can talk to and engage with those people that have commented about the very place you're considering. TripAdvisor is more of a report and review process. You can't directly communicate. You can comment on somebody else's comment, but you can't necessarily engage directly with that person and ask more questions, or unless they're watching it every day and they come back to you because you said something about what they said. But in the Facebook community world of Airbnb, there's a very active dialogue. And so if somebody goes south on their Airbnb product, it quickly gets discussed within the community associated with it. Problem is, this is the systemic issue with it, not everybody that is not as comfortable with Airbnb or is familiar with Airbnb knows about this community existence. So they have to take at face value the Airbnb's platform and say that this is what I know, this is what I'm being told, this is what I have to make a choice on. But the more that people engage in the Airbnb inventory usage, the more they're aware of the other channels of discovery that helps them to find out whether or not what's being said about that product is genuine or consistent with the people that have actually experienced the product. So it's more of that research aspect, and not everybody's into it. So that's what the limitation of it is. But there is a depth to it that I think that hoteliers would be good to learn more from it, by building communities of existence that talk about their destination. This is where CVBs and TDCs, I think, really drop the ball, is their ability to create that community. Adele, you know more about TripAdvisor than I will ever learn, so I do not want to speak for what you know about TripAdvisor.
Actually, we get questions. For the hotels all the time, not in the last 3 months, but normally. Does the hotel have room service? I don't know why they didn't click on the website or on the amenities portion, but they'll say, what do you think about places to go nearby or something? People will have all kinds of questions, are there refrigerators in the room, whatever. And they can make it where only the hotel sees the question or everyone can see the question. And very often guests are answering. However, they're very frequently say, I don't know, you should call the hotel. But so I'm not sure how if it's as valuable or being utilized as well as the Airbnb one, but it exists technically.
Yeah. The one of the other articles that Robert threw out that I think is cognizant to this is that the one that says all industry leaders are talking about we will return to the golden age. I feel like that's like Nero playing the fiddle saying, it's all right, it'll be fine after a while. I think that there's this optimism. I don't know, and I might be off base on this. It's just, this is a society changing event, even if it's not in its own way going to be residual. Whether we believe or worry about COVID 18 months or 2 years from now and just treat it as we treat the flu, which is, I hope I don't get it. The fact that government has changed how it handles things, the fact of how societies can be altered, our worry about how far away from our home we are before the music stops and we get stuck and our government has to fly a plane to pick us up. All these things that happen during this process, I don't know if that's going to, does this change Gen X in the future in a long-term sense? Do they turn into the Depression kids that from the 1930s that always made sure they kept a little stash away somewhere, because you never know? This changes society. And so these guys touting, oh, don't worry, we're going to get back to our business levels in time. Yeah, sure. And the rain's going to come down and the sun's going to shine. But is it going to really be the same? Is the travel going to be as freelanced as it was before 9/11? Where we didn't care about how many bags we threw into the airplane with us or how many big bottles of sodas or whatever, because we didn't care, that we didn't worry about that kind of stuff. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'll throw the link up for while I'm blabbering about it.
Well, I think human nature in itself is cyclical. You can go back and look at it. It doesn't matter what you look at, whether you're looking at the stock markets, whether you're looking at, rise and falls of governments over even greater periods of time. Yes, it may change, and it will change, based on the immediate after effects. But it will rise back. It will rise back, maybe slightly different. But my personal opinion is I don't think it's going to be fundamentally different. At the end of the day, a fundamental difference to the hotel industry is, I don't know, not having hotels, but having something different. That's the sort, that's the rise of Airbnb and killing off every hotel. That's fundamentally different. If that was going to happen, it would have happened by now, and it hasn't. So for me, I think it will take time, and I think Tim had some very good, very accurate statistics, even though they were go with your averages, about how long it takes the hotel industry to recover from such a disaster. And we are in that word again, unprecedented times. But I do think it will recover. The question is just going to be, how long will it be before it gets back to its peak? And then when we're talking about peak, we're normally talking about money, and that's the third time I've mentioned that in this in this show, which I'm cautious. I don't want to come across as just the capitalist cash guy here, but that's what we're normally talking about when we're going back to its peak in the hotel industry. Is how long will it be before we start seeing occupancy, ADR, and how long before we start seeing revenue back to the same levels? It will get back to that. The shape of it will be different.
I think that I shouldn't say it will. It can get back to that faster than what a lot of people expect. And Stuart's not on the line anymore, but he's probably talked about before. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, has over the past several weekends has very high occupancy, right? So there's a lot of pent-up demand for one, and eventually that subsides, right? That doesn't last forever. But I think there is also a tendency within our society that we kind of have short-term memories, and that can be both a good and a bad thing depending upon how you look at it. But let's think about just smaller events, not as big as the COVID or the rioting or things like that, but maybe there's something that happens, a shooting in a community or something like that, and it's the focus for a little while, right? It's all that everybody talks about for a little while until the next new shiny toy comes along. And we're even seeing it right now between COVID and the protests, right? The protests came along, and good grief, I haven't heard much about COVID lately. It's still there, didn't go away, but it's a new shiny toy. And as a society, we have a tendency to do that. And because of that, I think that we do move on to the next thing quicker than what a lot of most people are giving us credit for. Maybe we shouldn't. That's another argument. You could argue that maybe we shouldn't. But the fact is that we do. And we've seen that happen time and time again. Now, to Lauren's point, yes, it can recover faster, but when it does recover, will it be like it was before? And the answer is absolutely not. This is one of those game-changing moments where, just like within the airlines, used to be a time we didn't have to take off our shoes. Well, now we got to take off our shoes, right? And this is one of those moments that, yeah, it is going to change everything.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be looking at what we value. I think for the last 3 months, we've been really digging deep, saying what's really important to me in my life. Is what I'm doing making me, happy? Is this a time for us to set a reset button in our business and in our personal life? And my choices are going to be a reflection of what I've decided what is so important to me now.
Yeah.
Right?
No, we brought in earlier shows. I've been surprised that some very big industry leaders or people that have had great success in our industry have decided to step away from it, or at least consider stepping away from it because of this kind of pause in life that just made you say, am I doing what I like doing? Am I like doing it who I'm doing it with? A lot of companies treated their employees a little rough, would be a nice way of saying it. And because of that, a lot of people, good people that were thinking that they were, lifers, maybe, just to say the term, at their company aren't there anymore. They're not going to go back to it. And if they do take it back, it's because they're only buying enough time and getting enough money in their pocket to find what else it is or where else it is they want to go. So there's a lot of that going on, to your point. And the other is that the whole world for once did one thing at the same time, and that was stop. And how often is that ever we can say that happens to it? But Dean, to yours, this normalcy of time cycles of we'll get back to it, or financially, Trish, as you said, back when they went over and knocked down the walls of Jericho, it's like, okay, that's going to take us another 50 years. I mean, time's relative as to what it takes to rebuild what we have based on the scale of what it is. But Dean, what you're talking about is media. Media is just looking for the next, like, okay, we can't talk about that anymore. Nobody wants to listen to it anymore. So we got to find what next to talk about. And our society is built around that, and that's in the last generations.
And
But
it's
But
probably-
it impacts our behaviors too.
go ahead, Jason.
that time scale has become even more hypersensitive or shortened or whatever the term I'm looking for here, because at some points in history, news cycles have been based on the length of time between Donald Trump's tweets. And I'm not joking there, it genuinely is. You know, that is what's the next crazy thing that's going to now impact the news cycle. And if you think how quickly you can put something out or do that, that's how quick we to Dean's point, forget about things. This has just been a little bit too big and a little bit too impactful, and has caught quite a few countries ill prepared and not responding very quickly. That we've had to put our foot on the brake and just pause life, quite literally. And the reflection point as well to Adele, I think that's really good. I've been working with Ben for about 15 years now, so I know Ben's disappeared, but Ben, I think you and I, we might need to have a conversation too.
Well, I think Robert threw this in because of you guys, Ben and Tris, and maybe Stuart Libet, even though he's from South Africa.
Thought it was Australia.
This goes a little bit with something that's been brought up about colleges. As colleges rethink their education process, they're looking at the fact that hotels might actually turn into spaced out spaced out lodging for the students, with a lot of hotels that might be in distress and banks may be worried about taking them back over and so forth, that might be a solution for using reconstituting the hotels. Here, Travelodge UK is talking about landlords facing off battle over rent. There's already in the United States the fact that I think the statistic is somewhere between 20 and 30% of all rent last month was not paid on time, with a lot of forgiveness factors going into play with this recovery project and so forth. But what do you guys in the UK in comparison to us? What's going on? Are you paying your rent, Ben? Are you paying your rent?
Oh yes, sir. Oh yes. From a student perspective, first of all, it's a great idea as long as it doesn't result in more student debt, because I do not think that is the answer to this problem, increasing student debt for anybody. Secondly, it's a big thing over here. We're having people, I mean, our fees for university are nowhere near as much as I imagine they are in the US. But over here, we're having students who are paying £9,000 a year for their courses being taught remotely. So they're living at home with their parents because the halls are open, they're being taught remotely. They're not feeling like they're getting value here. And then you have these like megalithic institutions. You need to pay your fees. Well, I don't though, really, do I? You're not going to go bust if I don't pay, or if this year doesn't pay the 9,000. I've seen the monuments you erect to yourselves and the large gardens you name after vice chancellors. You're not at death's door just yet. But this guy who's just turned 21 and wants to study biology, he could probably do with a £9,000 break. So it's all into perspective. I'm not one for listening for the sob stories of institutions who may have to buy one less Mercedes, other brands are available, this year. That doesn't tug at my heartstrings, if I'm honest.
All righty. Well, there it is.
Don't hold back your feelings now.
And then I'll tell you how I really feel.
Down with the establishment part, but I think I'm pretty clear.
There was an interesting news interview with Scott Galloway, the clinical professor of marketing for NYU Stern. It was an American news channel, and Scott basically came in and said that there is going to be a reckoning for all second and third tier universities over in the US. That it's been built on this big business, the cost, the fees, and it's very similar to a point Ben's just mentioned there, where these tuition fees have been put forward, and they're saying, you've got parents at home actually looking at what their dollars and their pounds have been paying for, and they're kind of saying, is this it? It really, seriously, is this what we're shelling out all of that money for? Because we can now see it virtually, and the amount of times that students are going to classes. So I think that the education institutions in both the UK, US, and most of the Western world, there is going to be quite a reckoning coming in terms of where revenues are going to be coming from. And that is going to have an impact. So that article that they were mentioning there about, battle over rent, and that they're going to be going into the likes of Travelodge. Not so sure on that one, because it all depends on how many people are going to university and to which universities they're going to.
The reason why I bring it up is because it's a part of our marketing profile as hospitality people that we look for those that are coming to colleges, parents to visit for Parents' Day, and kids coming back and forth. It's a part of our marketing matrix as to how we plan for and position our hotels, even build our hotels based on proximity to universities and what have you. Some hotels are built by universities for the same purpose they're built by airports, because they facilitate the traffic required to go back and forth to that university. And as we look at and struggle with the fact that companies are saying we're permanently allowing you to work at home, how's that going to change the downtown metro area with all the parking and the restaurants and the hotels built for that corporate traveler and so forth? And now we're saying that universities, and excellent point you made, that there's a lot of tier universities, and it has been in the news locally here. Even before COVID, there was this discussion of why are we driving everybody into college debt, which is the largest debt we have in our country. When you can make more money earlier in life and have more safety and security and savings and quality of life and everything else. Be an electrician. Why is it we have to make them drive in to be a philosophy of old English studies from South Africa?
It's a noble profession.
It's a very noble, slightly specific job classification, and get into debt for $120,000 because you got to get a PhD before somebody will hire you. Then going off and becoming an electrician. So that conversation was already happening. So from a marketing point of view, from our side of things, that changes the metrics of, do we put a stick in the ground and build a hotel here because it's by X university, or whether we even have traffic coming back and forth, or now all of a sudden my hotel that I built for the university is going to turn into dormitories because that's the only business I can find. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Oh, sorry. I don't think that the experience of being at the university and being together with your fellow students will ever lose its people will always long for that. I think that there should be a hybrid. Before this virus, people were constantly complaining about the cost of education, and that it was too much for young people to deal with, and maybe the state should pick it up, or we should forgive those bills. But nobody was ever talking about how to reduce the cost, ever. And the more that the state gives, the more the university says, you don't have to pay all of it, so I can charge even more. Don't worry, you're not paying all of it. Some of it is paid by this. It wasn't helping. And I just feel like, first of all, it's really lucky that if we had this virus thing, at least we had it now when we had all these tools available where people could continue to learn, and we realized that we could work from home, et cetera, and so forth. But I think that surely we can find a way of reducing the cost, still having that community spirit of occasionally going to the school and being shoulder to shoulder with our fellow students and the educators, and being really a face-to-face community, and then keeping connected as well, online. There's got to be a hybrid.
There has, and I can speak a little bit on that. My wife's a teacher, a history teacher. Some might say it's not the most glamorous subject. I'm going to talk quietly about it. During lockdown, I'm an expert on the Russian Revolution now by proxy, and the amount of things that I've heard her talking and her teaching, the education, I think, is going to be, and we're sort of getting off topic here, but the education sector is going to be one of the last places, especially the stuffy, archaic institutions like Oxford and Cambridge, who are going to move away from that face-to-face teaching. But I've said it since March, this is the biggest remote work experiment we've ever seen. And it's not just for our industry, it's globally. And you're seeing teachers being able to deliver content virtually. My wife's a dab hand now at Zoom, but if I asked her to sit down 3 months ago, she wouldn't have had a clue.
So what is Zoom?
Yeah, and I mean that with love. So this is fantastic, and a lot of industries, I think, are having their eyes open, to the benefits of remote and how they can reduce costs. If you have a university that the students still go to it and they have the camaraderie, because it wasn't that long ago that I was at university. It was some time ago. It was a period of time ago.
Long enough.
It was,
But
but
still wear
you know,
those little tights and little hats and little pointy.
doesn't sound like the university that I went to. But they can still have the camaraderie there, but you can have virtual lessons delivered by noted academics. There's one of my ex-colleagues again from Pegasus called Levi Silva, who's working a company called ART, AHRT, and they basically beam in holograms. It's teleconferencing via hologram. And I said to him, the first places you need to go to the universities. Imagine being able to say to like the Americans and to the English, oh, you guys are going to have someone from MIT teaching you guys today. You guys are going to have someone from Oxford stood at the front of a lecture hall in 3D talking to you, being able to interact with you. That's a great way to reduce costs.
And it should be, beamed into Uganda and, Guatemala and everywhere else.
Exactly.
Like, why limit it to Oxford?
Exactly.
They don't have consistent power internet.
Yeah.
Well, there are a
We'll
couple
have
of
to work on that. That would be something.
Well, after
to
all the
suggest.
satellites be launched by Elon Musk, we're good.
And Jeff Bezos. Good old Jeff's looking at the internet for the world as well, I
I don't
believe.
think you're on first name terms with him just yet, buddy.
Well, I spend my wife. I spend that much money with him. I should be.
Okay, so
Talking about, all this crisis that we have right now, in terms of Black Lives Matter and equality for all, not educating children properly is like child abuse in a way.
Mhm.
Spending money for things that are not important in really giving our kids around the world a great education is unconscionable at this point. We should have all those tools.
All I'm going to say is I wish you were here, Adele, at my house so you could speak to my 12-year-old daughter and tell her just how much she's missing out by lying in her bed and not doing her virtual schoolwork right now. Because I've tried till I'm blue in the face to get her to do her schoolwork and all that, but no, she's leaving it till the last minute. She's missing out on this opportunity.
So Lily, I don't know if you know Adele, Lily, you already know Melissa.
Hi.
So bringing back to some on the marketing side of things, there's two things that I wanted to bring up. One is something that Robert didn't throw into his list, but I think is very, very important. That is Google's new distribution model, the commission model. They're opening that up onto their Google Hotel. And the second, of course, is Expedia looking for new monetization models with their new program, and how Marriott's already bitten on the hook with throwing their wholesaler rates at them for third-party distribution. Because now you're talking about two serious digs into another channel for two very large players, if not the largest players, seriously, Google being the largest, in areas that we never had before. And Adele, you'll love this, but I actually disagreed with Max on LinkedIn because Max put it up saying, what a great tool for hoteliers during this time. And I'm going, no, it is not. It's a Trojan horse. Yes, it can be helpful now because if you don't have the money to pay for advertising, commission-based models is the way to go. But with our industry, we get lazy and complacent, and we use it as a crux, and we say we can save money, and it's not on our budget anyway. And the next thing you know, Google has replaced Expedia Hotel and everything else, or added to them anyway. So I disagree with him on that. He agreed back. But anyway, so those two things. I'm going to throw two different links. One Robert did give us, which is Expedia's, and then I'm going to go find the Google one as well, and I'll throw it up in the notes as well. Steph, you got to run, Steph. I'm sorry. Hey, Steph, before you run, where can they find you? What do you do?
Stephanie Smith, cogwheelmarketing.com. Melissa, thanks for the awesome information. I enjoyed it, and hopefully everybody listening also. So hit me up on my website or on LinkedIn. So happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday. Bye, Steph. Thanks.
Sorry, Lauren, can I just say, I've got to dive off as well. This is exactly the same as Stephanie. It would be, I'd love to talk about Google Pay Per Se, but I know we've got
You're
Dean.
just scared because you like Google and Google's listening to you. That's what it is.
Justin, I've got an opinion on it.
Yeah, Dean will definitely have an opinion on it. Just super quickly on that one. I think you're absolutely right. It's going to be, for Google Meta Search, it's going to be very convenient. But I think if there's a good marketer that is managing that for your property, they're going to know and sense the opportunity that whilst it's a crux to get you out now, it's not something that you should be relying on in the future. And if you can afford not to use it now, that I'm probably stealing Dean's thunder here, there's some really cheap CPCs out there, which I'm sure Dean will mention because there's competition. I have to run. I have another meeting. You can get me. It's all right, Lauren. You get me at Tris.Hayward at 3and6.agency or 3and6.agency is the website, which is still not quite up there, but we're going to get it up and running very, very soon. Been a pleasure. Adele, fantastic to see you. Melissa.
Nice to see you, Tris. Bye.
Catch you all later.
Thanks, Tris. Thanks for the time always. So we get to talk about Tris now that he's going to. Okay, so please go right ahead. I'm going to go with the links as I was thinking. Hold on just a second. Dean, I know you have an opinion about this because you've already put up a couple articles about it as well. So.
Yeah, very much so. You want me to talk while you're putting up links?
Yeah, please go right ahead. I'm going to grab the link here.
So, effectively, yeah, it's really great with what they're doing. I agree with that. And I think it was a smart move for them to make. I think that there's a lot of people that do need it and can take advantage of it. So I do like it from that perspective. But here's the reality of it. It's just repackaging a CPA model all over again. That's what it comes down to, right? So effectively, whatever commission they're able to get off of that booking is going to be reverse engineered into what they call an effective cost per click. And there's different ways that you can frame that and put that together, but ultimately that's what it comes down to. And in a world where cost per click are sub $1 on Google, and when I say sub $1, I mean at a 90% impression share. Good grief, people. Yes, you got to do that. We had one global group, the month of April, there was a group we had of about 275 hotels that was at a 22-cent cost per click and an 85% impression share. How do you not do that, right? And I get it. You don't always have a budget. If your budgets are gone, they're gone. There's nothing you can do about that. And that's where having a commission system like that comes into play. And it's definitely worthwhile. But as you said, don't let that be the thing that you get addicted to, right? Because there's a lot more stuff that you can do, especially right now by controlling your own destiny.
Yeah, one problem is that our websites would be the place where we have exclusive rates and packages and places for codes for the people that we really know well or the people we email where they can put that code in and they'll get something. And those things are not designed to be commissionable. They're designed to use that portion instead of being for commission. It's for giving you extras in that package to give a better experience to the people who come direct. And if I'm now paying commission and giving people access to what's on my website, it's a problem. It could be a problem. I mean, in the beginning, when you need it, when you're opening a hotel or reopening a hotel, that's one thing, but.
Or if you're a smaller hotel. Sorry, go on, Lily.
That's actually, Ben, that's exactly where I was going to go with it is, I think that we tend to kind of broadcast our advice based around portfolios that we're comfortable with. But as I've been kind of polling the industry a little bit on what some of the big pain points are, some of these out of the way markets where there may be a really adorable boutique hotel that nobody's ever going to hear of and never going to have the marketing budget to lead people to their direct website. In those specific types of cases, I think that this could be a boon for them because let's be honest, as much as we all hate to admit it, there are some hotels that would never survive without getting 60% of their share through the OTAs. And there's no way that they can impact that because of whatever the size of the hotel, the market that they're in. I do think that's the exception to the rule. And that as a general rule, the hospitality companies need to be very careful about sort of getting into these long range agreements that end up hurting their profitability. But to be fair to some of those hoteliers that are just trying to put dinner on the table next week and are in that type of a scenario right now, I do think that in some of those situations, this could be a positive thing.
I put up a couple of articles real quick. Dean, I threw yours in, I hope you don't mind. Just a quick article and some of the stuff that you were recommending about localization and so forth that popped up earlier about it that is relevant to this as well. But and this goes back to an earlier statement that Robert made in his tirade in his letter today about the creativeness of doing these things. This isn't a single bullet solution, and it is a combination of usabilities. Commission models do work, yes. They never should be excluded. They should be a part of it. Lily, you're an advocate of allocation, where you and I have kind of pushed back and forth as to what we say we should use the channels. And I'm a proponent of trying to do channel shift now while we have the opportunity, but mindful of what you point out, not at the ignorance of diminishing the business potential of a channel just simply because you're trying to get more off of it at that time. We know that Expedia Hotels, Google, everybody's retooling what they're doing. Not so much Google, they already have a mission statement, but Expedia and hotels are definitely trying to find niche opportunities. I am concerned with what is going to happen to brands, because brands went dark when all this happened. And now they're coming out of it only preaching about themselves and not doing anything for the individual hotels, which goes, Lily, to your statement that small hotels are sitting there going, I gotta have some revenue streams here. And then all of a sudden now the cities are shutting down at 8 p.m. Okay. How are my people going to get to my hotel if you're doing curfew at 8 p.m.? So some hotels that are caught in this matrix of they actually can't even get business, even if the business want to come to them,
Yeah.
And the restaurants around them can't even open. They have to close. So what's the point of the travel experience going through there? And now, again, going to the safety issue that, Melissa, you pointed out so many times with the previous survey, what's my safety issue if I have to drive through a zone that has a curfew? And if I may or may not know about it, or how far around it do I have to go, whatever city it is, to know whether or not I just might be the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong scenario. Why even do that? So now all of a sudden the 200 to 350 mile drive radius goes to 150, tethered driving. I can go home if I have to. If I'm driving down the road and I find out on the radio or something that something's going on, they shut down a major artery highway to do something, I got to drive back home. I'm not going to go that far. So, it's been kind of funny this past week as I talk to people. It's like, yeah, we're just waiting for the meteor. Because it's a joke. At this point, it almost is like they had locusts in Africa already. They've already got the volcano thing talking about whether or not Yosemite's going to blow up. And now you got the fact that we got riots going on and,
wildfires in Australia. Don't forget.
There's a really nice tropical storm in the Gulf of Mexico right now.
Storm, and might I say, they already said there's aliens. So we've kind of covered the base.
I think, Lauren, though, that what you said, and luckily I was able to at least listen into earlier parts of the show a bit, but I heard you guys discussing on the fuel study that sometimes people aren't ready to travel because they're not certain what to expect when they arrive at the hotel in terms of amenities. And I think what you're talking about, Lauren, is the same thing. If you distill all of that down, it's just the uncertainty across the board.
The squirrels are attacking you, Dale. The squirrels are outside. Somewhere else.
But
it's never happened to us before. Now, don't worry about it. We've never ever had our dogs jump up in our laps or attack the squirrels. We're good.
We always need this on a Friday, right? That's the best part of the show, is the unscripted nature. No, but I think that it really comes down to the traveler's uncertainty. They don't know what to expect, and we're frustrated enough, right? Like, from what I'm hearing from hoteliers, we're frustrated at the constant changes, and this city's doing it, sometimes this county's doing it a different way than this city, than this state, than the federal, and travelers are experiencing the same thing. So to your point, Lauren, if they have to travel through multiple locales that have different rules, or they're not even sure, maybe they don't have different rules. I mean, even the Phoenix curfew, I know a lot of areas where they put out the curfew kind of via the text message alert system, almost like they would do with an Amber Alert. But here they did no such thing. So I actually didn't know about the curfew until a day after it was released. I could have very easily broken curfew without even knowing that I was doing so. And I think that just that uncertainty among travelers of not knowing what to expect is going to cause some additional hesitation in anything that's outside of their own locale, at least on a very temporary basis. I mean, one would hope that these curfews aren't going to extend past maybe a week or 10 days at the most. So that will be temporary. But when we come back to the COVID-19 rules, even with some of those, it's very different. My parents just traveled cross country in their RV, and they said it was almost like traveling to totally different countries based on the difference in fear levels and restriction levels and all of that. They'd go to Texas and everybody acted like COVID-19 happened 2 years ago and nothing looks different. And now they're in Michigan and everybody's fearful of leaving their houses. So it's really just all across the board, I think that uncertainty is driving a lot of travel decisions right now.
Here's a reality of something that I noticed. There's 2 platforms I follow. One's called TrendsMap, which is a really neat geographic map that you can zoom into and see people's postings as to what they're posting about. And I followed when they went over and said that 404 was closed in Los Angeles. I zoomed down with it to see what people were saying about it. And there was frustration because, okay, you're a car and all of a sudden people step in front of you. Duh. Roads blocked. Okay. Police are showing up somewhere. They're in riot gear. You're there. We've seen it on the news. You try to drive somewhere and protesters may not like that idea. So you're frozen in time. Then you can't get out of the car. Do you get out of the car? How much gas do you have in the car? Are you going to get stuck in the car? What are you going to do in the car? There's a barrier. You can't change lanes and go backwards. Can't turn around. Can't go through people. And there's a bunch of really angry people in front of you. What goes on? Now that get backed up by 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles. And so all of a sudden you see this blow up on social of conversations like, what do I do? What do I do? The police aren't coming down in normal day fashion when there's an accident and saying, okay, guys, we're going to open the barrier and redirect you back. And you're going to take this off ramp. And they're not way behind you, redirecting people off the highway. No, they're in riot gear ahead of you. Normal society isn't normal right now. And you're stuck. Do you sit there worried about interacting with other people with a mask while you're low on gas and you're going to run out of gas and it's going to be a hot car? You know, this is the world of what we're asking people to say, oh, we're fine. Come on, travel and stay with us. When the next day, and this is a true story to me, some of my clients in one of the cities, we went from having a budget what we planned for to all of a sudden there's curfew. So all but the airport hotels I can't get the people to the hotel. So the budget goes up, put that on the shelf. Now I got to go build a different budget for just the hotels you can generate revenue that you're going to share revenue with the other hotels because they're the only hotels you can still do business with. It is surreal in the day-to-day changes that have to go on from a marketing perspective and from a communication perspective. You almost wish there was ability to have a hotline to it, which is something I think I'm going to try to incorporate just as a future tense thing, depending on my markets, on saying, this is where you go to. We'll tell you what we know from our market. So before you travel, if you need a source reference, we're not an authority, but as a source, and you need to call and go, hey, I'm pulling into the city. And it's like, no, don't do 404, do this, whatever. Maybe we can be helpful. It again goes back to the core of our industry. We're supposed to be helping people with their travel. So maybe that's a new addition to our new paradigm. My new word, old word.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, Lauren. And overall, I think we need to be that voice. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying after my trip to Sedona a little while ago. Don't wait for your local attractions to tell your guests what's open. You have the fact that they're open. You stay up to date on all of that, because if you can provide, that is the most valuable thing right now. If you can provide confidence to your traveler, they're going to be more likely to travel. And if you are able to stay up on top of that, so again, you don't want to put it up there and then let it go 2 weeks out of date because you're going to lose their trust in the long term. So you have to be committed to the effort, but having a whole kind of FAQ page around this right now would not be inappropriate.
Completely agree with you on that. I mean, just speaking for Myrtle Beach, the city of Myrtle Beach is a very small radius of our entire area. And the rules are changing per city limit. So imagine going in Myrtle Beach proper, which has, some guidelines, and you go 10 miles up the road to North Myrtle Beach to a different restaurant, and the rules are different. So I agree with you, having all that information on a hotel website of what really is open, what the rules are, it's priceless. You've got to have it.
We've incorporated that. Yeah, we've incorporated that. One of the first things I asked the GMs of some of the hotels and one client that has them clustered is I need to find out immediately in your area what is open for lunch, what's open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Do they have delivery service capability? Do they have pickup service capabilities? Do they have limited menus and full menus? And we literally put that as part of the pre-arrival information. Just so people understand that they're going to be staying with us, regardless of what we're offering within the hotel. Just their awareness of what's around that hotel, and this goes for branded and independent hotels alike. This is your chance to have your own voice. whether you're branded or not. You still have the lateral move to being social. If you can engage your guests or communicate with your guests about the stuff that they need to know to make the decisions they need to be at your hotel, this is that part that we never had to worry about before that we have to make sure they know. I just, as we're talking through today, I'm going to add the part of like, literally, we're going to add in the pre-arrival for some of these hotels. Please look at us as a resource to tell you what to be prepared for. We'll let you know whatever we know about whatever's changing in the rules or whatever happened that is affecting our hotel or what it takes for you to get to our hotel in certain areas. And it's a shame, but again, if anything we've learned from this is we're all kind of having to redefine what we're doing individually anyway. There's no collective, this is a single entity that tells us this is blue, this is white, this is red, this is green. It's all us deciding how we're going to communicate. So.
And it's evolving. You can't even go on your website and say, you know, book our hotel for the future and this is what's going to happen, because we really don't know what's going to happen. We don't even know how to describe what the experience inside the hotel is going to be, because we're, you know, it's up to so many different factors.
Yeah, like I said, the municipalities even, you know, there's a lot of places that just simply say you can't open your pool. Whether you feel you have hygienically cleaned your pool or not, in the surrounding areas and all this, the CDC guidelines, there's municipalities that simply say there's no pools open for, you know, group use. There's places like that,
and it's the number one thing people ask about.
Yeah, it's and you know, I think Melissa, you guys pointed out the fact that when Myrtle Beach did open up, there was a lot of unanticipated, like there's a lot of pools closed, restaurants not open, beach had restrictions, so there's a lot of unnecessary gatherings and repercussions.
Right. Yes. And unfortunately, right or wrong, consumers, when they don't know what's going on and they get to your property and they can't do all these things, that reflects negatively on their whole trip. And they're not going to come back, maybe.
And on your
they might write a bad review.
Right.
Good point.
Just a very quick shout out for the Library Collection, who has the top 3 hotels on TripAdvisor. Just
in New York City.
Just so you know.
And 10 years ago, in 2010, we were number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 in a row, which nobody has ever done before.
Yeah,
and,
like
and I don't think since.
I think Adele's forgotten more about how to do this than I will ever learn.
If anybody wants to know, you can link in with me, and I will try to advise you. But look,
yep.
One
by
thing
far.
it really said is, you know, what's a hotel to do if you're not a big brand and, you know, you don't have a lot of advertising dollars? Well, maybe you have to go, you know, you need the support of the OTAs in order to bring you the billboard effect. But the truth is that the way you run the hotel and the reputation you build brick by brick, customer by customer, we have a technique or a system that we use to make the hotels stay on top like that. And it's true, you know, in Budapest, our hotel was the number 1 hotel in the world in 2017 out of 1.1 million accommodations on TripAdvisor. Let me tell you, it's a huge billboard and it doesn't cost anything. It's like, smile at the guest, listen to the guest. When they ask you a question, answer it in a helpful way, not in a polite but not helpful way. It's an entire philosophical commitment. It's not necessarily easy. It's easier to write a check for new drapes or new carpet, but it's a system that makes the staff happy, the guests happy, and it raises your ADR, it raises your conversions, it raises your, you know, user-generated content, it maximizes your exposure. I don't know why everybody is so happy to be the number 200 hotel in a 400 hotel market. I don't know why people are so not rushing to see how to get to the top, but you should be. And this now in a time when trust is suddenly such an important component of where the choice of hotel selection is going to go to, you know, now is the time to press that reset and say, I'm going to start talking about kindness and compassion every day. I'm going to start talking about communication.
And if you're not doing it already, Adele, you probably are, but if you're not doing it already, mine that user data. So anytime somebody's writing reviews about your hotel where they talk about how clean your hotel is, good grief. You want to take that, post it on your website, reuse it, mine the daylights out of that stuff, and utilize it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if
No,
you don't have
if
tools
Ed
to
was
make
here,
that possible, go find some.
if Ed was here, he'd be talking about Flip2. We know that.
I was actually just thinking that Flip2 would provide a pretty good solution for this. So
Yeah,
just saying.
but it goes back. I mean, we all have our stories. My most successful, not even close to Adele's, is a simple bar that I used to own. We had peanut shells on the dirt floor, and I kid you not, dirt floor. The beer was mostly cold. Food was okay, but we were packed. And everybody that built a restaurant around us could never get our people that came to us. And the reason why is because the people were they loved coming to see the people that worked there. The beer was fine enough, the food was fine enough, but the fun was even better. So
it's why everyone turns up on a Friday, Lauren, for this.
Yeah. So yeah, dirt floors, peanuts. I'm with it. We're good. I think I just put the analogy to our show. Yeah, I think you're good.
It just goes to prove it. You don't have to be the fanciest hotel. You don't have to be the most opulent. Any business can be number one on TripAdvisor if they make their customers at that level feel great about being there.
Yeah, it's the culture.
Adele, do you have any data about the percentage of reviews that mention a staff member's name? Because
you know what, we're very careful that in our hotels we do not do anything to incentivize mentioning a staff member. To me, that's it can have a double-edged razor on that, because then that person, can you be sure that you put my name, da 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 da, and people don't like that. You should celebrate anytime, the housekeeping department is mentioned. Yay, housekeeping! As a team, it's a team thing. We don't let it become a personal thing. So we don't monitor it that much, but not that many. They're just saying the people are great. They're not necessarily saying this one person is great. You know why? Because they met 10 people that were great.
So Adele, you ever going to go out into the open world and start sharing your magical system?
Yeah, I'm thinking about
I was going to say, Adele, your monologue there, you should stop halfway and say, this is the payroll. You want to hear a really good stuff.
Because I know it's beyond just the TripAdvisor. I mean, you do this on every review platform. You do it on every aspect. You change the culture of the place. And it just seems like not a waste, because it's obviously to the benefit of the library collection that you have done what you've done. But from a perspective of learnability out in the market, that would be a very strong training program to have. Just thinking.
Throwing it out there.
Even if TripAdvisor didn't exist, it would still be the right thing to do, because long before TripAdvisor ever existed, everyone said word of mouth is your best advertising. A satisfied guest is your best advertising. And why would you want to be average when you can, have people thanking you all day for making them feel so welcome?
Well, considering the timing of it all too, we've definitely learned of the polarization of our industry, of those that did it as an asset versus those that did it as an industry of love. And companies that treated people poorly, I'm trying to think they're going to come back with trained staff, are going to be in for a sore surprise no matter how high their unemployment rate is. They might get the mediocre people back, but the really good people are going to go to the places that are going to treat them like really good people. So there's a lot of that, and the fact that, you said that right now trust is more important than anything else. So getting that trust into your organization culture now, as you rebuild your organization, literally rebuild the organization, is probably one of the most time sensitive things that can be introduced into the culture. So just saying, be good for the whole world to know how to do it. Anyways, we are close to the 2-hour mark. And again, as always, time flies when you're having fun.
Lauren, sorry, before we start to wrap up, can I just clearly ask, Melissa, have you got through all the data?
Oh, yes.
Did you manage to get through everything? Because we have been...
got through all the critical things.
That's a no. Okay, right, okay.
We didn't.
Lauren, stick another hour on the clock.
All right. We're here until we're done, Melissa. There's no... Was there anything that we missed that you wanted to say? Because, I mean, other than the stupidity of the Key West TDC, which is baffling because they're usually incredibly good at what they do. But that was a definite faux pas of don't take an aspirational term of such magnitude that meant so much more than what you'd made it to be and put it as an advertising slogan. I Have a Dream is not meant for you whether you're coming down to the Keys to jump in the water. Sorry. Ain't going to be used for that. Nope. So that's the boop. That's the wet row, by the way, for everyone. I don't even want to throw the link up because it's embarrassing because I used to be a part of the TDC program down there. When I ran 5 hotels, I was part of running the DAC up in Key Largo, and they're much better than this. That was a step in the poop, if anything I've ever seen. That's just nobody did a checks and balance on. You just don't take aspirational terms like that and throw them around. It's like saying I've seen the Promised Land and you're looking at a picture of your hotel. Just that's something to do. It's no. Anyways, Melissa, was there anything we missed?
We got it covered.
Ben, you okay with this? Do you feel like that nobody's going to give us flack for this now?
I feel like we're going to get flack. If I'm
well, yeah, we're probably going because you know what they listen to Melissa anyway. So it's
Lily, we needed Lily half an hour earlier.
Yeah. Lily, you let down on the organization bringing us back.
My 5-second rundown on the hot topics. Yes, I think that I'd feel more comfortable with the cleanliness standards in a hotel than an Airbnb because I don't know that person or what they do for cleanliness. And number 2, I disagree with Lauren on the return to the golden age. I think it's definitely going to happen. I think it's just a little maybe early to be talking about that because in terms of like a golden age, we're probably looking another 5 to 6 years out. So I think that I agree with the golden age return because let's be honest, it happens with every economic cycle. We always have things really good and then we're like, oh no, there was a downturn and now we're not spoiled anymore for a little while. And then eventually we'll return to being spoiled at some point and it will cycle again after that. So it's just a matter of time.
You know, it used to be that Ed was the only one that ever disagreed with me.
I know we've disagreed quite often recently, Lauren. I'm not sure what's happening.
For some reason, we used to be like this. Now we're kind of like, you know,
I know. I still love you. It's okay.
You know, if we didn't disagree, this isn't half as much fun. I mean, if we're all going, oh yeah,
Right.
yeah, whatever they said +1, you know. No,
And
it's
you know,
not
I
much fun when
always
we're
say too, like you put 10 super smart people, usually I say revenue managers, in the same room and give them the same problem, you're going to get 10 super smart solutions, but they're not going to be the same.
That's true. That is very true. But with that, Dean, it has been a pleasure to have you pop in with us late on the thank you as always when you pleasure to come into it. For people not familiar with Dean, I did throw one of his articles in. I think it's the last post actually that's over on the side of the chat. It will also be in the show notes. It was a great little pop-up on conversation. Dean, you always have a great insight, especially when it comes to MetaSearch and its usability. If people want to know more about you and what it is that you do, where can they find you, sir?
Fastest way is probably on LinkedIn, actually. Just LinkedIn/in/Dean Schmidt. There I am.
Excellent. And golly, Adele, this is the first chance we've had you on the show. I hope it's not the last.
Oh, no, not at all. I'd love to be here again. Thanks for letting me join in.
I'm glad you got past the technical detail. This platform has a bit of a quirk that sometimes if the screen is on full screen or partial, that when you go to click in after registering, it gives you this blank screen until you change the size. I've sent them a couple of ticket requests on it, and I've never gotten an answer as to why that pops up that way. But thank you for getting past that. If they want to know about what you're doing now and currently, and potentially what you're doing in the future, where could where could they find you?
LinkedIn with me, Adele Gutman Milne on LinkedIn, or email me at adeleshotels@gmail.com.
Excellent. Mr. Ben, you're still in the throes of the evil plan to take over the universe with 3 and 6.
Yeah.
Are you Pinky or the Brain? I think you're the Brain out of Pinky and the Brain, right?
I've been called a lot worse.
What do you do today, Brain? You know,
same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over hospitality digital marketing. Yeah, you can catch us at 3 and 6.agency. I was after the conversation we had last time going to get a little A4 piece of paper and spin it around.
Yeah.
But the ink ran out on my printer, and I couldn't bring myself to do it in black and white. That's just not my bag.
You need to have your 12-year-old color it for you.
Well, you know, if he had his way, he'd make it out of Minecraft blocks. That is the battle I'm fighting.
Well, you know,
no, guys. I woke up at 5 to 7 this morning with the 5-year-old's face this close to me, this close, asking if it was time to play Minecraft. First of all, this feels like a home invasion. Oh, it's James, right? What? No, you can't play. What? No. So if I appeared grumpy, apologies. Charles' fault. Hate Minecraft.
And what Ben's referring to is that it was suggested last week that we should all hold up little signs that have our who we are, what we are, so that it's easier for people to go back and play them back. And totally forgot that was a suggestion that said we should consider. But I'll
email everybody next Thursday evening and say,
as a reminder, saying don't forget your signs.
Don't forget your signs for tomorrow.
Here's your sign. Melissa, since we know that you are the brains of the operation for Fuel Travel, the guiding force, the leading principle, and that Stuart simply just rides on the coattails of your success. Where
I think I'm drastically underpaid.
If people want to find out more about you, the Fueligans, your amazing podcast, your award-winning amazing podcast, where is it they can find more information about you?
You can find everything you need to know about fuel at fueltravel.com, where you can find the podcast, you can find the latest sentiment studies and all the rounds of the sentiment studies on the blog, and also the mobile app. You can find out information about that too. Shameless plug.
Yeah, there it is. All right, with that in mind, we are don't pass the bottom of the hour. For all of the previous 251 and this show, 252, you can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. There you'll find a link to a replay, as well as all the show links of what we did and didn't get to, and all the additional links that have been provided in our chat as well. We also, Lily, forgot to mention your podcast, which is the Revenue Management Podcast, which you just sent me the new version 8 of, which I'll be loading up today. Minus the issue we had last week, which never seemed to load up the day I loaded it up, but we'll get that figured out. I also have a podcast, which is a recap of this show, much shorter than this show, in which we go over tools, techniques, and a recap and a news item that I thought was worthy of a further discussion. And that is the Hospitality Marketing Podcast, different than the This Week in Hospitality Marketing Live. So with that, we will see everyone. We do have a potential guest speaker next week and the week after. Maybe the week after that. It seems that we're getting quite popular again. So we'll be back to some stuff. And I know Ben and Tristan have some evil plans to bring in some guest hosts as well. We'll see how that goes.
Oh, yeah.
If anybody wants to help us do the screening vetting process, let us know.
In descending orders of chaos, if I'm quite honest. Like, they'll be really like, oh, yeah, highbrow discussions, and then there'll be just possibly drunk English people.
Okay,
well, very bottom.
I'm looking forward to when we get to the bottom of the barrel on that one then.
Me too, buddy.
So thank you everyone for your time, and for those on all the ones that contributed to the chats and all the other platforms that we were on. We'll hopefully see everyone 11:30 Eastern next Friday. Till then, thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.